Hi, welcome to part 3 of a 9-part series. I forgot to mention in the last segment that we are actually behind the green door now. In segment 2 we filmed in the lobby of behind that green door that goes into the Myrtle Cat House, the recording studio that I've built here. It's really not a business, it's more of a hobby and an exchange program where I don't charge money for recording sessions, just if somebody does me a favor, I do them a favor. You know, it's that kind of thing. Well, anyway, we are now in the recording studio itself. Before, in segment 2, we were in the lobby. Now we're in the studio. And again, as I say, this is part 3 of a very unusual but true spiritual awakening. It started in 78 with the supernatural event, the Seed Movement, and then got bizarre in the spring of 79. And that's where we are right now. After the diet that I had in April, it ended on April 20th, I felt that something very good was about to happen. Well, something happened, all right. And whether you think it's very good or not is all depends on how you take it, I guess. I guess friends and relatives would say, no, it wasn't very good for me or for them. But myself, I believe it was very good for me and for them. So it's all in how you take it. What happened was strange things, coincidences, if you will, ESP type things started to accelerate after the diet. For instance, I was in the record business. We worked for California record distributors at the time. They distributed a lot of little labels, about 200 or so different small labels. There were some bigger labels like Vanguard, but pretty much Flying Fish and Philo Records. But they were pretty much small labels. One of them was called Advent, and at the time I didn't even know, when I worked for California Record Distributors, I didn't know what Advent was. You know, the second coming. The Revelation was another label we distributed. They were both blues labels. And Biscuit City Records is one of the small labels. There was a singer, not singer, but she sang a little bit, but she was mostly a violinist. And her name was Marie Rhines, or is Marie Rhines. And she had a couple of albums out. And there was this one album, a new album, called, I think it was Reconciliation. And there was a sexy picture on the back of her. And then I was listening to the music, and when it got to the fourth song, I think on the first side, Lonnie's Lament, which was a John Coltrane composition done on violin, and she just blew me away with that. It was just unbelievably good. And so I started listening more and more to the whole album, and I really liked it. I used to play that a lot. And anyway, when I really got into that album, I wrote a song for Marie Rhines called Marie Rhines. And the day after I wrote the song, I'm at work, and there's a phone call from Biscuit City Records, and it's the president of Biscuit City saying that Marie Rhines is going to be coming out to California in a week or so, at the end of April. And so I asked, is she married? And she was, so that was that. But I still, wanted to meet her because I liked her music. And I actually got to take her around, even though it wasn't my job for promotion. I was more of a salesman, but I was allowed to take her out to her gigs in San Diego and San Bernardino, and take her to the radio station, KPFK, public radio, and to some of the Tower Record stores, one in Anaheim. So I did that, and she had her sister, she brought her sister with her, and they took me to dinner in La Jolla when we did she did the San Diego Folk Festival there. at the end of April, and on, I believe it was 28th. And after dinner, I found a place to stay. It was the Holiday Inn in La Jolla. They had a guest house that they were staying at that, that wasn't room for me. It was just, room for them, just barely enough room for them. So they stayed at the guest house, and I stayed at this place called Holiday Inn in La Jolla. No relation to the chain of Holiday Inns. This was just a separate business with the same name, which I think eventually changed to the La Jolla Inn, but I'm not sure about that. Well, anyway, after dinner, when I got back to the apartment there, the motel, I smoked a little joint and took a couple puffs on one, and got the munchies and went next door to Baskin & Robbins and got an ice cream. And then I went back to my room and went to bed. Now, I don't know, it was a little after 11 when I went to bed. I don't know if what happened when I woke up, whether it was midnight, before midnight or after midnight. So I don't know if it was the 28th or the 29th of April in '79 that this thing happened that I'm about to relate. I was having a real good sex dream, not related to Marie Rhines and her sister or anything like that, but this was a real good sex dream. And all of a sudden, it felt like something went through my body and under my bed, and I heard what sounded like a slamming door. That woke me up. I instantly woke up. First thing I did was check my wallet to see if I'd been robbed. Then I went over to the door and looked outside, and it was all quiet outside. So I think it was after midnight, personally, because when I looked outside, there wasn't anything at all happening. So my guess is it was after midnight, which would make it the 29th. And then I went back to bed, but after that, stranger things started happening in May. I tuned into Dodger games, and they didn't have a very good year in '79, but there was this one period in May when this was going on, in the end of April, beginning of May, that they had a 7-game winning streak. And then during that period, I tuned into about 4 games where they were either tied or behind, and I'd go, mani pane, and get excited and picture them getting hits and runs, and that would happen, and they'd come back and they'd win games. And they won 7 in a row, and I think 4 of them were when I tuned in, when they were behind or tied. So I started to think that I was having an effect on the Dodgers. I'm sure people think they have effects on their teams all the time. It just seemed like an uncanny number of times that it happened and worked. And I've tried it since. It doesn't work anymore. It just worked during that one period, that week. And sometimes, you have your normal things. Like when I root for the Lakers, I sometimes think I'm affecting their games, and it really seems that way. But that's another story. Getting back to May, besides the Dodgers, there was symbolism I was starting to see in things. When I'd watch movies, old movies that I'd seen before, like Here Comes Mr. Jordan, I'd see things I didn't see before. Like in that movie, there's a bit role played by Lloyd Bridges, and Bo Bridges and the other Bridges. What is it? Jeff Bridges. Jeff and Bo Bridges. They their father was Bo Bridges from Sea Hunt. And even that's kind of symbolic, Sea Hunt, because the sea is the big sea. The sea is Christ. The water, the baptismal water is the water of life, the water of wisdom, the sea. The Sea Hunt is like a hunt for the sea, Well, anyway, the line he had was, this is plane 22, or something like that. This is plane number 22. Well, I had never heard that before when I'd seen the movie, and I'd never noticed Lloyd Bridges in it before, but the 22 came up, and it was about that time that I started to figure out with numbers that 11 was Jesus, so 22 was Jesus twice. So I thought that was interesting, that because here we are in a plane that's going to heaven, and here comes Mr. Jordan, and the plane number is plane number 22, and they even mention it out loud. And there was other things. At the end of that movie, the exit is exit 55, which Christ adds up to 32. You know, not without the Jesus part, just Christ, Christ adds up to 32, which is a 5. So exit 55 is 5 twice, Christ at the second coming, basically. And that's where that movie ends, in the gym there, or the auditorium, exit 55. So when the girl and the guy go up the exit. So it was little things like that, and then I'd start to get information on the Kennedy assassination, and it just got kind of bizarre, you know, the whole thing. When I went back to La Jolla on the 15th, I was across the street from the motel. I stayed in the same room, and I walked across the street, and I looked up at the sky, and it was around 8:30 or between 8:30 and 9 at night, and it was almost dark, but not quite dark. And I thought I was looking at Venus, but I later found out that it was most likely Jupiter. And Jupiter in Roman religion is the main god. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. Anyway, I was looking up at the stars, thinking I was looking at Venus, and Venus I knew was a symbolic of love and the goddess of love, and I'm thinking that that's what I'm looking up, and I'm asking a question inside, not externally. I didn't ask it out loud. I said to myself, you know, what's my mission? I felt like I had a mission. And I was answered, but it wasn't anything I heard with my ears. I heard it from inside, and it didn't sound like me. It was like somebody else talking to me, and they were telling me to save up my money, go back to Vermont, and write my autobiography. And here I am, a nobody practically, basically nobody. You know, working in the record business, a salesman, not a famous person at all. And I was supposed to write my autobiography. The only thing I'd ever written before was like poems and song lyrics. You know, that was it, song lyrics mostly. And my former acting instructor, Robert Gist, once told me if I ever wrote my autobiography, he'd like to read it. And that was about 5 years earlier, 1979. That was 7 years earlier, 72, I think he said that. So I guess that was somewhere in the back of my mind. You know, that thing wasn't consciously on my mind, but it was in there. It was planted in there. At any rate, I had 15 of the 16 chapter titles by the end of May. And the 16th chapter title was something I added myself, and I wound up taking that chapter out because it was basically just my lyrics, my lives, or something like that, and I eliminated that chapter because the original was with just those 15 chapters. So I went with the 15 chapters, and there were things that people didn't really talk about much back then. There weren't the tell-all books at that time, you know, that happened afterwards. I think the first big tell-all book was one about Peter Sellers that one of his ex-wives wrote, Britt Eklund or May Britt, one of the two, I can't remember which one. And she wrote a book about Peter Sellers. And it was basically a tell-all thing. And well, this I felt I had to be totally honest about because when I wrote it, and I guess when these titles came, because of the chapter titles mainly, it was things like masturbation, where Fantasyland meets Guild City, raising a family of fucked up kids viewpoint, prostitution, you get what you pay for, women, sometimes you get what you pay for, a suicide, the ultimate sin of self-pity, army bullshit, bogus, bogai, bogality, songwriting, dreamland, dreamland, songwriting, goals, dreamland, I forget the name of that one, but there was 15 rather interesting, well, the biggest chapter was the 15th one, Final Days, Bozo City. And I went into all the strangeness that was going on in 78 and 79. At any rate, I got that mission on the 15th, and what happened after that we'll go into in segment 4. Thank you.